outcome. Because this was a discussion that was very interesting for me to have with a client of mine yesterday, today I wanted to talk to you about handling the fear of missing out. So the first thing that I would say that you've already done is admitting to yourself that you have the fear of missing out. And that's great because you've done it. So you're aware of it, which is the first step. And as you're aware of it, it's what we talked about yesterday. It's about being mindful around when these fears are showing up and what they're telling you about yourself. So whenever there's an event, for example, and you're thinking, oh, I really want to go there, ask yourself, what would I be missing out on, or what do I feel I would be missing out on if I'm not going there? And the deeper you go that way, and the more you're going to be able to really pinpoint what the problematic is, which you already have a good grasp around what it is, but the more specific the questions are, and the more you're going to get into a place where you are really conscious about what the problem is. Sometimes we think that the problem is, like, for example, with you, what you mentioned yesterday, you said, if I'm not invited, then I think maybe there's something in the relationship, I've done something wrong. But perhaps the more you go deeper and you say, okay, but if there's something wrong in the relationship, what does it make me fear? And then the fear could be that then the relationship breaks down. And if the relationship breaks down, then what's the fear behind it? And then that fear of being alone, or not having the right people around you, or something like that. So there are different layers to your fear, and the more you're asking a question, the deeper the deeper you're digging into it, and the more you're going to get really to the underlying fear that's pushing it all up. And that's where we talked about looking at your life story and the origin story of the fears. There's at a point in time one event that triggered all these fears. So just to give an example, which is, I think, kind of easy to understand. So let's imagine as a child you were bitten by a dog, and then every time you see a dog that resembles that dog that bit you, then you've got that fear coming up again because you associate it with the event that was there. That's the trigger, that the origin story of that reaction. And so for us, what we're looking into is and that's why I was suggesting yesterday to say auto-hypnosis or hypnosis can help, or even writing in the evening before going to bed, just writing on a piece of paper, saying, okay, what is my fear trying to tell me? Or if you have a specific situation in mind from the day, it's about writing it out and saying, okay, what is X, Y, Z telling me that I should learn something for myself that is serving me? Any fear that we have is there to support us and to make sure that we stay alive. It's a way that our brain has been working for centuries, and it's there to protect us. It's never there to prevent us from doing something, even though sometimes that is effectively what can happen. Or in that case, that's prompting you to do perhaps too many things sometimes. So when you understand the origin of that specific fear and that specific situation, that trigger, it's going to help you to get into a place where you can just dismantle it and say, oh, but I know this is not real, because if this happened, then I know that not all the time that will happen. And because it's concomitant, then we've got to look into having a sense of gratitude. So the fear is there, and it's something that you're experiencing, and maybe it's something that you don't really like having, but you've got to be grateful about it. You've got to say to yourself when you're experiencing, thank you for letting me know that this is triggering me. I know that there's something that I need to learn from the experience, and I'm open to learning from the experience. And that's when then the journaling will come into place, where you say, okay, I'm grateful for this. I've been triggered by that. What does it mean? What is it telling me about myself? But that fear of missing out, it's also about being clear and reminding yourself of what your priorities are and what matters to you. You're already pretty clear about what is important and what not. And that's really good. Like you told me, for example, that the fencing is not something that you have on your plate for now because you have other things that you're more interested in doing right now. So what we're really looking into is to get crystal clear about where you really want to be spending your time, in the sense of what is it bringing you that you want to get out of life. It's like that bucket list. I'm not sure if you heard about it. So a bucket list is where you're writing down on a piece of paper or a notepad or wherever you want the list of everything you want to have accomplished before you die. And there are always a lot of big topics that come up into the mind of people when we're talking about it. For some of my colleagues, it's writing a book, it's traveling around the world, whatever it is. And so for you, sometimes the fear of missing out can actually just push you to really be missing out on what is important to you, because you see something that's nice and shiny and you think, oh, that's cool, I really want to do that. But you don't remind yourself that there are perhaps other things that you want to be doing. It's feeling out. It's like that Chinese philosophical story about the philosophy professor asking his students, how do you fill out a jar with big stones and sands so that it's filled up? And the students were there, well, but it doesn't all fill up because both jars are almost equivalent, so it doesn't all fill up. And the answer was simply to say, okay, you put the big stones first, and then you put the pebble in because it just goes in and it empties the hole. And then I think they also had water that was then going into the small holes that were still left empty, and that was filling out completely the jar. And the story behind it is just to say to be focusing on your big priorities first. And then whenever you have time left for those smaller things and things that you will enjoy, but that are not your priority, then you can fit them in too. But it's still important to be prioritizing those big goals or priority that you have. And that's when you're moving then from the fear of missing out to the joy of missing out. When you identify what truly matters to you, you no longer look into wanting to do everything, but you're getting into a place where you're actually grateful and happy and joyful to be missing out on those things, because you see what you're winning on the other hand, on the other spectrum. And so at the end of the day, it's really about asking yourself questions every time that fear is coming up. It's about knowing if it's truly mattering to you. What is it behind? What is triggering you? What is it making you say about yourself? Because very often it's a reflection about how we feel and what we think about ourselves. And when you're truly getting into a position to understand what you think about yourself, then you're in a position where you can just put those fears to rest, because you know, for example, that your friends love you no matter what, and they're great, and yeah, maybe sometimes they don't have time to speak to you, or they forget to invite you somewhere, or maybe they just think you're not interested in those specific type of events, but that doesn't mean anything about how they feel about you and about what they think about you, and that they're there for you. And so when you've grasped all of this, then it's kind of simple. And we go back to one of the things that I was saying before. It's knowing that sometimes you just have to walking away from certain situations that are triggering you. If you don't know how to handle them, or if you can't handle them yet, doing some deep breathing, just clearing your mind also. And that will help you to enjoy the journey and to reduce the effect of that fear of missing out on yourself. Fear of missing out. If you've got any questions or any comments on your personal situations, I invite you to post them below this video, on the blog at audreysarnold.com. And otherwise, I'll see you for other tidbits of wisdom, experience, and anything else that you're telling me you're finding interesting and helpful for you.